everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 8 of Death Parade, and I'm really excited for this episode, if anything, because of the rule of 8. If you've not watched my channel before, or you are not familiar with this, I have a very specific rule about series of anime or seasons of anime that are 11 to 13 episodes long. And my rule is that the 8th episode of those seasons is always going to be a good one, no matter what. Now, in a 24 episode series, it's not always the case. But in a 12 episode series, the 8th episode is always special, whether it's amazing or it reveals some really important insight or a twist or a reveal. Something's going to happen in that 8th episode that's going to make it stand out from the rest of the season. And I have yet to be proven wrong. So we're on episode 8 of Death Parade. And the reason why I say that is because usually there is a 3-act structure in literature, at least in the Western tradition. Now, in Japanese literature, there's sometimes a 4-act structure, which could mess this whole thing up. But in a 3-act structure, you have 12 episodes. So your first 4 episodes introduces your characters, introduces the world building, introduces the main conflict, right? Which I think it has done so in this. And then episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8 kind of explore those concepts. And episode 8 is usually that turning point right before the final act. So something's going to happen in episode 8 that's going to lead into the final act of the season or the series, whatever that arc is. And we are at that point. And when we last left off last episode, we met Quinn, who was the arbiter before Decim. She has a whole history, and there's reasons that she left the role, and now Decim has for 5 years replaced her. But Oculus is being super creepy, and I think Oculus is suspicious that Nona is trying to doing something she's not supposed to be doing, which is letting the black-haired girl exist. Nona's a little bit worried they're running out of time with Nona, and how's that going to affect Decim? Ginty is letting Mayu stay with him instead of judging her, so there's that going on. It's like Ginty and Decim both simultaneously are having issues with judging and letting people go because they have these human emotions. Now, has Decim and Ginty always had these human emotions? Are they arbiters with human emotions? Or does Nona wish that maybe the black-haired girl could be an arbiter because she's human and that would affect her judgment? We're gonna find out, right? So I'm really excited for this episode, but when we last left off, Castro had sent, because of Nona's request, a pair of people to Decim and the black-haired girl that needed a special arbiter because something was wrong. So are they murderers? How does this go? What's the deal? Are they psychopaths? Because so far, the people that have come to Decim have, had darkness in their heart and had flaws, but they were still just normal people. Like, they weren't criminals or people that were, psychotic or anything like that. They were just ordinary people that had issues in their lives, like any of us could have. But what happens if we get somebody that's a little off the norm? So I'm really excited to see how that's going to shake out. And I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait. I was like, I wasn't going to watch this episode till later this weekend. And this morning I woke up and I was like, oh, I really want to watch it because I want to see it before I'm going on a trip this weekend. And I was like, I want to see it before I go on my trip. So so that's what we're doing this morning. We are going to watch Death Parade episode 8 and just see what happens. So I want to make sure that I have my subtitles on. They were not, how dare, and that we've got everything set to go. I've got it all plugged in, so let's not waste any more time, y'all. Let's see what this episode gives us and dive right in. So with that being said, we are going to start Death Parade, episode 8. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's do this, y'all. Holy cow. The rule of 8 has not let us down. It has not led us astray, has it? Oh my gosh. Oh, that episode was great. And it's a 2-parter. So that means next episode we get to continue where we go to. Oh my gosh. I'm just, So yeah, so having, again, we had our special cases, which are the two murderers. Two murders. They both have killed people. So the detective has killed someone, and so has the young man, Shimada. Which I'm assuming the person Shimada killed, I'm assuming is maybe the one that caused him to die. But that's a curious thing. We don't know at this point how Shimada or Tatsumi died. We don't know. They died at the same time, so did they find each other and kill each other? We don't know. How is their cases related? Because they seem to be two separate things, right? They seem to be two separate things. We need to go through this episode and talk about it. I love at the beginning the squeakiness of the glasses and getting cleaned. I love that Decim's bar does not have a dishwasher. Which I don't have a dishwasher either. My family grew up being like, you don't need a dishwasher, you can wash dishes yourselves. And plus dishwashers use a lot of water and they're expensive and they're high maintenance. And I'm like, I'm not going to mess with that. So I do not have a dishwasher. I wash my own dishes. So I appreciate Decim's spotless care that he does with this. And he gets the memories incorporated in. I'm amazed that she can get the memories. I was half expecting her eyes to almost turn into like an arbiter's for a second when she got the memories, but I guess that's not happening. But I'm amazed that she can get them. I guess she's dead, so what's stopping her? What's stopping the Information Bureau from giving her from getting her the memories? That's just very weird that she gets them. But what's fascinating about this is that she instantly, like Decim gets them all the time, the memories, and he's just, there they are. And when he gets the killer's memories, he's just like, oh, that's weird. There's one of them's they're a murderer. And then when she gets the memories, she's like about to explode. So that says something to the human capacity of getting those memories. And I wonder if that is why it has to be an arbiter getting the memories, because if you inherit all that trauma and all that stuff on top of memories you may have, it's too much for the human body to handle, even if it is a spirit, even if it's too much for the human soul to handle, not necessarily the human body, because she's dead, she doesn't have a body, she's a dummy essentially at this point, but it's the fact that her soul cannot handle having all of the memories of these two murderers incorporated alongside it. So that's fascinating. That is fascinating. So it really does need to be an arbiter passing judgment, right? And maybe that also explains why the arbiters lose their memories of their previous encounters over time, because if you kept storing all of those memories, they eventually would start to have an effect, right? So it's important that you don't harbor them, that you keep, it's important you don't harbor them, that they keep erasing those memories so they can move forward and keep doing their job. Interesting. But he says he's going to verify it. I love that he just does like a wireless communication. Oh, and not really. He calls Nona and he's like, hey, is this for real? And Nona, who knows exactly what's happening and has orchestrated this whole thing, is like, it appears we have a guest coming who has killed someone. Now he says we have a guest coming who's killed someone. He doesn't say both guests, but you technically could infer, theoretically, he is implying that either one could have been a murderer, and both of them are. So I like the show gives us that twist. And the black-haired girl's instantly like, wait, what? And she's like, yes, the others are up to their eyeballs, so you handle this one. Which was not true. She specifically orchestrated it to happen. And he's like, I have no experience. And she says, that's all right. People are people. And that's such a good... She brings up a really good point. Every person is capable of becoming a killer depending on the situation. Everyone has that ability to be in that situation and to become a murderer. It's whether or not they actually go through with it. And she says there's not much difference. And I'm going to take a picture of that, her face in that moment where she knows exactly what she's doing, right? So here's the question. The question, of course, being asked is, how will Decim and the black-haired girl judge them based on that? Because it seemed that right off the bat, the black-haired girl wanted to be like, oh, well, they're both, that the killer is the guilty one, so we have to judge them accordingly. That's what's fascinating, is that from the get-go, the impulse is to, oh, we're sending the murderer to the void. But they're both murderers, so do we send them both to the void? Do we think either of them is worthy of reincarnation. Based on what we know now in the episode, I would argue with we can't just assume that they need to go to the void, because it seems like there are both circumstances where the two of them feel justified in their actions. It wasn't just like, but that's the thing, how do we judge this? Like, a murder is a murder. Taking a life is taking a life. So regardless, so you can look at it in two ways. They took a life. Do they deserve to be reincarnated because of that? Because you could see a human making the argument, well, his sister was assaulted. That person he felt justified in killing. The man's wife was murdered. He felt justified both of them felt justified in repaying the harm done to their loved ones. And I could see someone arguing, well, that person deserved it. They took a life. What we don't know is we don't know who assaulted and who killed the two victims. We don't know the reasons why they were in that circumstance. We don't know. And it wasn't a premeditated. Here's the thing. The death of the wife, was it something premeditated, or was it an accident? Was that person terrified and in the moment just swiped the blades, stuck, and then left? We don't know, right? We don't know. That's the thing. We're not sure what happened. So it's too early, I feel, to say whether or not that person truly deserved to be killed by the detective. I think it's too early to say, because, the impetus is to say, well, you shouldn't take a life no matter what, right? Now, the assault, I have a little more issue, but that's like for personal reasons. But the assault seems more premeditated. Like, if someone is assaulting someone, they are aware of what they're doing. The death of the wife could have been an accident or an act of seeming self-defense, or they were just afraid. They tried to rob the house, and in the moment they were like, oh shit, and stabbed the woman. We don't know the extent of how she died. Like, was she stabbed multiple times? Was it something that was like an act of murder, or was it just like in the moment, oh my God, like, was it homicide? Was it murder? How does this work? We don't know enough details yet. The assault leads you to believe that there's a little bit more thought put into it, which makes that party seem a bit more guilty. But we don't know. It's too early. This episode has proven you cannot judge the situation from first impressions alone. Because when they first walked into the room, I was like, oh, it's the old man that's the murderer. He looks a little bit more threatening. Now we find out that they both are murderers, but I didn't suspect the kid right off the bat, right? Which, going back to this episode, he shows up looking nervous, so yeah. The black-haired girl clearly is bothered by the fact that they have to judge murderers, because we as humans instantly think, oh, they're murderers. They've done something bad. They deserve punishment. And then you hear their story, and sometimes sometimes, depending on the circumstance, it can change your mind as a person, right? Like, oh, well, it was self-defense, or, oh, well, they were attacking me and my family and it was to save them, or, oh, the details, the devil's in the details, right? And what we don't know are the details at this point. So it would be hard for me to judge unless I knew the full scope of what was going on. But I like that Nona's like, judging them is no different than judging anybody else. They still need to be judged. And I love Decim in this episode where he says, like, no, I can judge anybody. Anybody can be judged. Like, we can judge anybody on a daily basis, whether they're a murderer or not. He's like, this is no different, right? And I like that the black-haired girl is instantly on edge. She's like, one of you is a murderer. And then we find out, of course, they both are. So it's like, So I like a lot of things about this episode. One thing I really love is that when they tell them about the game and everything, now we go back and see the boy, and he says, I was heading somewhere. So the boy has the pack, and he's heading. I thought in the reaction he was coming from the murder, but this is leading up that he's going to the murder, right? He's going to where it takes place. Okay. And then he asks the man, and he's like, I know that I was going somewhere too, but I don't remember where. So they're both, it seems like they're, on the sidelines there. On the side, you see that there is, on the side, you can see the X's. The location they're both at is the same. Same time of day, same location. So they're going to run into each other at some point in the timeline. The question is, are they looking for each other? Do they even know each other? Or do they both end up there at the same time and like a crane falls on them, or like a car spins out of control, hits both of them? We don't know the circumstance of their death yet. We don't know how they both died, but we know they both were there at the same time when they died. Like, that much is clear. But the other parts, we don't know yet. So, like, oh my God, what do we do with this? And he's like, okay. And so they ask what the place is, and he's like, I'll explain the circumstances. And so then we cut. What I love about this episode is that we cut to them instantly, like, hearing the rules. They've heard the gist of everything, and they're instantly looking for a way out. Man, it makes the first episode seem so like, why didn't you guys look? Like, they didn't even try to find a way out, right? But they're like, a game with our lives at stake. And so then the boy goes to the bathroom, and that's when he, like, sees the counter, and, like, he sees the counter and figures out he has the knife on him, and he's like, oh shit, I have a bloody knife in me. What's going on? Oh God, I don't know how this is here, but this makes me look really suspicious. And then the older man, he sees the dummy with the piano wires and is like, what the hell? I love it. He's like one of the first people to look at the piano wires and been like, what? But yeah, the bloody knife. So yeah, he's instantly like, oh my God. And then what makes things even crazier is the old man says he's a detective, and the boy's instantly on edge like, shit, he's a detective. But here's the thing. He talks about being able to know that someone's a killer based on looking them in the eyes. He's looked at that boy in the eyes how many times? And he's not let it go that he knows he's a killer yet. He's not let that come out. Even at the end, he doesn't really admit to the boy like, oh yeah, I knew you were a killer the moment I looked into your eyes. So the question is, the boy, is he a murderer, or is it just like, was it an act of revenge that goes wrong? We don't know. Again, we need more details. But I love the idea that we have a detective here, and he's instantly like quoting like legislature. He's like trying to find his way out. Like, I love the idea of a detective in this world. It's kind of like we talked way back several episodes ago about if Light and Elle from Death Note were here, right? What that would be like. And so it kind of, this reads a little bit like that, which I like, of seeing like, what would a person trying to deduce every little thing, how would they feel in this situation? That's really good. Again, the little girl is on the board, right? Which is interesting. The little girl's on the board instead of the symbol for Queen Decim. We don't get that. And then of course they show the mannequins, and the boy is scared, and the guy's like, I don't feel like the guy's as scared of the mannequins. He's more curious about like, what do we do with this? And his whole fascination is that he gets no emotions from Decim. Nothing. Which, one, Decim's only 5 years old. So it kind of like throws off the entire human psyche of imagining a 5-year-old adult standing in front of you. But two, he's an arbiter. He's not supposed to have emotions. So there's that. So it's fascinating that the detective's like, I want to find out more about him. I want to know about him. Like, what's his deal? What's going on with him? What can we learn from him? What's happening? Like, I love that. I love the idea of him trying to figure out what's going on in the situation. And so then, yeah. And he says he's not a detective, he's Tatsumi. And then Shimada is... I would think of Shimada, I think of the Shimada Mart from Haikyuu with the little pig, like the grocery store with the pig. That's what I think of when I think of Shimada, which is kind of funny. But he's like, would you help me? He's like, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And yeah, so air hockey is the name of the game. And then we have the most badass air hockey table ever imaginable popping up. Now, the air hockey rules are... the rules are same as regular air hockey. You get 2 points a puck. So they only need to score technically 3 times to win. But if someone else scores off of their puck, then they lose a point. So it could technically take longer. So when the last time we checked the score, the game was 3-3. So they still needed 3 points to win. Now, the organs, the body parts, there's an ear, there's an eye, there's the heart, there's the lungs, there's the stomach, there's the brain, and then there's like this weird line that is a weird line that's over it. I'm like, is it their, I guess it's their mouth. Yeah, it's their mouth that's drawn there. Interesting. But it's kind of like death billiards and how that was. So what's fascinating is that in the OVA for Death Billiards, we just assumed they were just images. So, and at the time, Decim told him in Death Billiards that there was nothing more to them. They were just images, and it was all psychoschematic in their head, what they were getting from that information. But here it seems like they originally were just images. Now, Decim never said they were just images. He just said there were images of your organs on them, but he didn't say they wouldn't do anything. So I think that's important. He didn't tell them, oh, these are just images, nothing's going to happen, and then change the rules. He just didn't tell you all the rules. And I think it's fascinating that the little wand that speeds things up is broken. So they can't unnaturally speed up the process of them getting their memories. Instead, they try to speed it up by having the organs inflict pain, having the pucks inflict pain when they're done to help speed up the process instead. Interesting. But yeah, we get the boys' flashback where we see the mom dying and the Shimada family funeral service and him telling his little sister that he'll protect her. So we get that. And they said, I remember us playing air hockey and we were poor, so we'd keep a rally going. And the boy talks about how they used to play air hockey and he would do it with his sister to try to keep a rally going and keep her spirits up after their parents passed. So he has like a personal connection to it, which is fascinating because the old man is the detective is the one who chose the game to begin with. And then he says, those things have time limits on them, That was a shock. Just like how like human life has an expiration date, right? And then the game later on, Decim ends up giving it a time limit as well, and they go into like sudden death mode, right? I was expecting them to just say it was sudden death, like one more point and the game was over, but that would be changing the initial rules, and we can't do that. And so yeah, they take a long time in this game, and he asks how old Shimada is, and he's 22. So Decim, I think it's important to note that Decim notices that the black-haired girl, he says, are you not feeling well? Like, he shows some concern for her, which is really sweet. He's like, are you okay? And she's just like, no, it doesn't sit well with me that one of these are a murderer. He says, is it because of the killing? And she says, yes. Even with a normal person, things can get out of hand when they're put in extreme conditions. So I feel like her comment there is kind of twofold. One, she's saying that in life, anyone can become a killer if they're put in an extreme enough situation, which is kind of her saying, like, it's not just the fact that they're a murderer because anybody is capable of doing that. However, because we know that they're already a murderer, our goal as an arbiter is to literally put them in extreme situations where that darkness will get drawn out. And if the darkness is clearly already there, she's like, things might get really out of hand in this game if they're a murderer, because they may get pushed to the extreme and act on that extreme, right? They may not just have a mental breakdown. They may try to kill us, the others. Now, they're all dead, so it's not going to matter. But it's still just the fact of dealing with it. She's like, things are going to get really out of hand if we're not careful. She's like, this could be a really bad thing. And he's like, people are people. He says exactly what Nona says. He says, people are people, no matter what. And she's like, you can't make a legitimate judgment. She's saying, we already know that one of them is a murderer. How can we judge them fairly if we know that about them? If we know that extreme about them, how can we make a legitimate judgment? We've already seen that they have the darkest of darkest in them because they've killed someone. And he says there is no one that cannot be judged. Which is funny because Ginty's not judging Mayu. You're not judging the black-haired girl. So you say there's no one that cannot be judged, but yet you're holding off on judging them. For what reason? It's fascinating. I will judge them regardless. And she's just like, what do we do about that? I love the death rally emblem as well. That's really good. Love it. So it's 3-3, and the boy is thinking about the knife and worrying about it, especially when it's right there by this detective. And he's like, since we've gotten here, strange things have happened. And he's like, what is with this game? Like he's trying to figure out the game because he's a detective. That's his whole MO, right? He's trying to figure out what the case is. Why is it like this? And he's like, are you not able to go home or something? Because he says, what do you think the hardest part about being a detective is? And Shimada says, oh, well, is it not being able to spend time with your family? which makes me think of Death Note, right? I instantly think of Soichiro in Death Note, like not being with his family, and the Shimada saying, well, that's the hard part, right? You can't be with your family. And the ashtray having all of the butterflies and moths on it seem interesting, because a lot of times we associate butterflies and moths with death. So I think that's really interesting. I'm thinking of the Vinland Saga Season 2 OP. And he says, it's not the time or the exertion. He says, most of the cases the division handles involve the deepest of emotions. And I really like this part. He's like, the thing of it is, it's not the time it takes or the fact you're away from your family. It's like the pain and grief felt by the next of kin of the victims who are taken by wanton murder. It takes a lot of energy to confront those kinds of emotions. So yeah, just like in Death Note, just like anything else, he's like, the difficult part is that you have to have the energy to constantly be around those grieving and to be able to work in a functional capacity in that environment. Because yeah, if you ever go to a funeral or you're comforting someone who's grieving, it's a process. And there are so many emotions, and it's so powerful, and it can drain you. To be someone that is on that case or cases like that 24/7, it takes a lot out of you. And in order to do your job properly, it takes a lot of energy. And he's like, you have to be able to look at things with a very specific mindset going into these cases. And he's like, I mentioned judging people's eyes earlier, and that's when he knows that Decim's eyes, he's weird. I've never met anybody like that. So yeah. And so then Shimada's like, well, why do we keep playing? Now, at no point have we ever found out if they don't play the game, what happens? If they stop the game, what happens? Decim says you shouldn't do that, but what does end up happening? We don't know. Do they just get judged? Are they forcefully judged? How does that work? Do they instantly go in the void if they refuse to play the game? We don't know. But Shimada's like, why are we still playing? Like, why we're taking a gamble playing. What if we don't play? What kind of gamble do we take then? And Tatsumi says, if we keep going, we may find something out. Like, that's such a detective answer. He's like, we have a right to figure out the truth. He's like, if we keep going, we'll learn something. And Shimada's like, but what if we don't want to learn? What if we, in the end, don't want to know what we learn? And Tatsumi's like, that's just what we got to do. We got to keep moving forward. We need to learn about Decim and about the game. And Shimada's like, I'm not interested in Decim or the game at all. He's like, I just want to get back. I thought if I cooperated, our situation might change. Which I love this dialogue between them because it speaks so much of their characters and their goals and them just wanting to get out to go finish their agendas. And he's like, wait a little bit longer. And he tells Shimada, and he's like, do you ever get scared of anything? And he's like, yeah, sometimes I'm afraid, but there's nothing we can do but continue. Until we end the game, we can't get out of here. And so, yeah. So then they start the game back again. I do like the hockey pucks with the bones, like the paddles with the bones on them. Those are really cool. So we see him like wishing his sister off to high school and telling her how she's grown up and that she'll do her best. And so her saying she'll do her best inspires Shimada to want to do his best as well. And that score he gets off of Tatsumi leads him to finding the memory of finding his wife when he gets home from work. And we see her gripping the curtain and the door being open when the person's getting out, and her like on the ground there. Now, it looked like she was chasing after someone whenever she like fell and grabbed the curtain and the person got out. So the question is, was it somebody just looking for someone or trying to rob the place? My thing is, in the back of my head, I was like, is Shimada and Tatsumi, are they connected? But how would they be connected? My question would be, if Tatsumi and Shimada are connected and they're both murderers and they both are after one another, why? Because as far as we know right now, Tatsumi is not a murderer. Did Tatsumi kill Shimada? If Tatsumi did kill Shimada, why? And why did Shimada have the knife? Now, if I'm trying to like theorize here, and I don't want to know if I'm right or wrong yet, because we'll find out next episode, right? But it could be that Shimada went to Tatsumi's house for reasons. Why would he go to Tatsumi's house? Did he find out that Tatsumi is my biggest disconnect is I don't know why Tatsumi would have abused or assaulted Shimada's sister. Why would he have done that? What would the deal have been? Because I'm trying to figure out the loop of events. Because you could say that maybe Tatsumi came home, found his wife. Maybe Shimada went to the house that Tatsumi lives in thinking that the assaulter is there, goes inside, breaks in to try to find him, and then the wife is home unexpectedly, and she's like, "What are you doing?" Shimada freaks out, grabs the kitchen knife, and stabs her, and then tries to run away, and she tries to run after him, trips and falls, and grabs the curtain and bleeds out. And that's that. So I could see if Shimada had accidentally killed, like out of self-defense and fear, stabbed the wife of Tatsumi and then ran. But that doesn't, here's the thing, that does not coincide with the timeline, because we find out later that a passage of time has happened from his wife dying to the current timeline, because we see Tatsumi, we see him going about his business and becoming obsessed with trying to find the killer of his wife. And the people in the police force are like, he's getting too obsessed with this. It's too personal. We need to like get him out of the division. He needs to get demoted, or he needs to be put on a different division with different cases. He's taking this too seriously. He won't let it go. He won't let anybody else work on it. Like, so a passage of time has happened. So the only thing I can think of Shimada wouldn't be going after Tatsumi's apartment to find an assailant, because this clearly, the event of Tatsumi's wife dying happened far previous, because then we see the shoes that she got him, and we see how worn they are, like he's worn them for a long time. So there's been a significant amount of time pass from when his wife died to when he ended up in Queen Decim. But that's not to say that maybe Shimada, who was poor, they established he was poor and he was trying to provide for his sister. Was Shimada someone that frequently robbed people to get money to help take care of him and his sister? Was one of the places he robbed the home of Tatsumi, and he accidentally, like, he got found out by the wife, freaked out, stabbed her, and ran? But then he has the bloody knife on him when he dies, so the timelines don't quite add up there. So that's the only thing keeping me from thinking that Tatsumi, after that long-winded ramble, that's the only thing keeping me from thinking that Tatsumi and Shimada are immediately connected, because it seems like time has passed since his wife died, whereas the murder that Shimada commits happens very recently. Unless Shimada has killed more than one person. And that we don't know, right? But the point is, he finds his wife and then remembers his wife dying and him freaking out. And we don't see his freak out, but we see him like remember his wife dying, and then has this like renewed sense of, I need to get out of here to go find the man that killed, or the person that killed my wife. And he takes a moment, and that's when Decim's like, man, their pace is slower, but she's like, we can't tamper with what memories do get recalled, right? What are you going to do? And he's like, well, I guess we're gonna, wait it out. And that's when she asks to get the memories. I love the scene where he has the cigarette smoke, and he's sitting there after remembering his wife dying, and like he instantly has to go and smoke. He instantly has to go have a cigarette. And he sees like the dishes in the sink, and that's when she like brings him the shoes and talks about how busy he is. And then she takes away the cigarette and says, no, you can smoke later. Have these first. And then we see, and he sees her smiling face, and then we see the shoes that are worn. And he's like, that's right. She was killed, all right. And I love the smoke like rising up from that moment. The animation was so good there. It was so good. I loved that. And him remembering. And then saying, I thought Tatsumi was pulled off the investigation because he was getting too obsessed with it. Right? He says, I thought he was pulled off of the investigation. And then he says, I hear he hasn't taken any time off. Like he's become so obsessed with the case and trying to figure out who her murderer is. And then it says they should move him out of the division. Like everybody there's worried about him because he just won't let it go. And he says, I can't bear to watch anymore. Like it's just consumed him. Word is that he likes a repeat offender. Word is that he likes a repeat offender out on parole for it. Is that he likes a repeat offender out on parole for it. That's a weird translation. I don't know if that means that he thinks that it's a repeat offender out on parole for it, or that he suspects it's someone that was out on parole. And then Tatsumi's the one who sent him up. Oh, what is this? What was that? He likes a repeat offender out on parole for it. What's more, Tatsumi's the one who sent him up the first time. So, is he suspected? Is that he likes a repeat offender out on parole for the first time? Tatsumi's the one who sent him up the first time. And it shows him like looking down at the case files. So, that translation's so weird to decipher, and I'm sure we're gonna find out next episode what it really meant, but I guess does that mean that the suspect they think it is someone that was a repeat offender that he had caught himself, but then they went out on parole, so it's someone he had caught, but they had just been put on parole for it, and he'd allowed that to happen, and that's why he feels bad about it? Interesting. And so he kind of blames himself. And I like that we see like him getting mad, remembering all this. And then we cut back to Shimada, who's like in the fetal position, holding a bloody knife in a bag, being like, oh my God. And then seeing how distant he looks. Let's keep going. Oh my God. Like he's just instantly just ticked off about it. Oh, like he has to get out of there to go find his wife. And so then we cut to Shimada's memory of coming home and finding the assailant. Like he comes in to find his sister. She's not dead, but we see also like the dishes in the sink that are clean, right? We see the dishes as well. Are those dishes like nearly the same as the one? Are those dishes nearly the same as the one? Because he says both of his parents died, right? So that can't be the case, right? He said both of his parents died. Because he has the shoes on in that one. I want to go back to that where they do the dishes in the sink. Because he says, I'll put in a request later, Decim does. I want to go back to him. The Lucky Strikes. Yeah, the cigarettes. I want to go back to that image of the dishes in the sink. Okay, they're somewhat different, but they have a dishwasher, yeah. Somewhat different, but the place where they're drying is different. Okay. So it is a little bit different. I was going to say those dishes look almost the same, but it almost seems like just a visual representation of how similar these two men are, especially in how they find the situation of their loved ones. And he sees that, yeah, she's been assaulted. It's very grisly and horrible, but I'm glad that they keep it as restrained as they do. Like you see the visual of her and you know all you need to know in that one image. That's all you need to know. That's it. So the question is, why didn't that person kill her? Why'd they just assault her and leave? What's the situation? Like, it's awful, but what's the situation? And he vows to go and find whoever did this, and he's going to kill them. Right? He's like, there's something I have to get out of here and do. And he says there's something I have to do too, even if it costs me my life. And Shimada gets so mad, he like takes his fingers and like burrows like into his flesh. He's so angry, just like Tatsumi. Right? So now the question is, he's like, there's something I have to go do. So at this point, Shimada does not remember that he's killed a person. He doesn't remember that. Tatsumi believes that he's still out getting revenge, but we as the audience now know that both of them are killers. Neither of them remember killing anyone, but they are both killers. So my question is, did Tatsumi kill Shimada, thinking Shimada was the one that killed his wife? We don't know. The timelines aren't syncing up yet, and so I know that's going to happen in the next episode. I don't think Shimada's the one that killed Tatsumi, though. Even if Tatsumi believes it, I don't think the timelines make sense. Unless he just killed her on accident. But yeah, the old, like, the chattering skulls in the air hockey game, and then it becoming sudden death, where they both, like, have, I love that it's like Queen Decim. Like, you see I love the skull and crossbones on the air hockey table, and in, like, barbed wire font, it says Queen Decim on it. That's actually really cool. I would have a sticker with that on it, honestly. And it says, every time someone scores a goal, the body part on the puck is going to experience pain. And it's just to accelerate the process of them remembering. And he tells Tatsumi that his sister was assaulted. He's like, I went to the police and I couldn't get them to act. And the fact that Tatsumi says, you don't say. Like he knows all too well when the police aren't going to act on something. Because Tatsumi likely feels that he has been ignored in trying to find his wife's murderer. So I like that there's so many similarities between Tatsumi and Shimada. They are both people who have had their loved ones attacked. And they're both people who tried to find justice for those victims. And the people with the authority to enact justice abandoned them or let them down. And so both of them have decided to take matters into their own hands to extract that justice for the people that they loved. The question is, are they connected? We know they both end up at the same place when they die. Were they connected or not? Were they just two individuals who are both murderers who met at the same time and died at the same point? Or is there a thread of connection between the two of them and the people that are victims? We don't know that. That's the one thing that is so fascinating that I'm waiting for next episode to find out, is that we don't know. I'm just like, oh my God. But yeah, we don't know yet how they're connected. And he's like, I can't let him get away with it. And he's like, I'm also after revenge as well. I'm killing someone. My wife was murdered. And yeah, so I don't know why Shimada looks so worried at the end when he talks about his wife being murdered. I don't know. But yeah, so then in the end credit scene, he says that the memories should come shortly. And they come really quick. It's like 10 seconds and she suddenly has them, right? She instantly has them after like 10 seconds. And then her eyes don't change. She just gets the memories. Now, we have the memories. We have a doorbell being ringed. We have the sister that looks like she's in a hospital. We have like blood on the poster of someone with a phone. We have a warehouse. We have someone being stabbed. I'm assuming maybe that's the person that assaulted his sister. Okay, we see the bloody knife. We see the bloody knife in the corner. We see the person that has been stabbed. I'm assuming they're the person that assaulted the sister. So we see him stabbing them. And then we see like something like the day, like see him going home with the knife, like throwing up. Then we see the wife being stabbed. But here's the thing. What is this? We see the wife being stabbed. I want to go back to that memory. So we see that and we see someone with a knife, like holding it up to her face. We're assuming it's the guy that assaulted her. And then we see the man with the shoes, but he has blood on the end of his feet. What? And then we see his sister. And then we see him finding her. We see that again. We see a light shine, and that's when she falls over. So we get more on Shimada killing the assailant, but we don't get anything to know why Tatsumi is a murderer. Fascinating. And she says they're both killers. These are the memories of killers. And that's it. Okay. Oh man, that's what we get. I'm so intrigued. I'm so intrigued. So yeah, so what are they going to do? I mean, they have options. I don't know if they can judge them without judging them equally at this point, because they're, even though they're both killers, they both could still get reincarnated. It just depends on what the outcome is. Like, are they still good people or not? We don't know. But what's going to happen? Because there has to be a winner to the game. But we know that the winner of the game doesn't mean anything. They could both be judged the same way, or they could be judged different, or they could both go to the void. They could both get reincarnated. But I personally don't see them split up where one is reincarnated and one is not at this point. I see that they're either both going to the void or they're both getting reincarnated. Now, whichever that ends up being, we don't know. So we don't know. That's the fascinating thing. So how are they going to end up judging them? When all of their memories come back, how is it going to affect things when they realize they're both dead? I don't know. I don't know, right? So I'm really excited, though, to hear what you all think down below. Please, no spoilers, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait. Especially with a two-parter like this. I don't think I'm going to be able to wait, so... But I'm really excited to know your thoughts down below. This was a really good episode. The Rule of 8 did not let us down, and I'm so excited to see what's going to happen next. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Death Parade. Bye!